Dear Mom and Dad, I am engaged. Very exciting. His name is Sean, and a few things about your future son-in-law, which I figured you'd probably appreciate knowing. Number one, he is gainfully employed. He and I actually work in the same factory, but in different departments. One of his major hobbies is dirt track racing. He is currently in the process of building his own race car, which if he doesn't get to race this year, I'm absolutely certain that he will be racing the following year, so that's going to be very exciting to do, especially if he does well and we get to go and travel and see more of the countryside and see different tracks and meet different people. I think that'll be pretty fun. He has a deep love of music and is in fact a bass player. He used to play with a band, and while the band is no longer practicing together, he still has that passion. He still has that love. He is a very well-read person and a very intelligent, very imaginative, very intuitive individual. He happens to be agnostic, and well, let's see. One other quick little fact is I have properly introduced him to Doctor Who, and he has an outstandingly good appreciation for the character and for the storyline. I haven't gotten to show him any of the classic series yet, but that will come with time. He is caught up from the Ninth Doctor until the current Doctor, so I've done my job there, Dad. He is one of us. Oh, and one last note, Dad, he shares your love of puns. There's not a day in my life in which he is not finding some entertaining pun that he found on Facebook or that he heard or that he thought of. And yeah, so if the two of you were ever to meet, you would have that very much in common. You would at least be able to entertain each other. So, that's the few tantalizing little facts about your future son-in-law. The big day is going to be May 4th, 2019. And no, it's not going to be a Star Wars wedding. Hate to disappoint. Yes, he loves Star Wars as much as I do, and yes, we are nerdy enough to actually consider having a Star Wars wedding. But it just wouldn't really suit the location, the venue, or any of all that. So what we're doing is we are actually having the wedding at the family farm. There's this little cluster of pecan trees, and that's where we're going to have the ceremony. I'm wanting to hang, ribbons and wreaths and, little doodads just kind of hanging from the tree branches and, the various wedding colors. The ceremony itself is going to be a hand fasting ceremony. So I'm getting ribbons and I'm figuring out how to braid and going to incorporate all the wedding colors into that cord so that, when we're all fastened together, it looks pretty and it makes for really good pictures. Oh, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a very relaxed, not overly formal farmhouse style of wedding. It's going to have, some rustic elements, some little prettier, glittery, glamorous elements for my sake. But, it's going to be a good time. The reception is basically going to take place more or less in our backyard. It'll be a 1840s, 1850s farmhouse, which we've been gradually restoring. And that's going to be a multi-year process, but we're certainly going to get it presentable before the big day, and I'm hoping to have a chance to plant the flower beds and have some colors in there of flowers that are the appropriate wedding colors. Oh my goodness, there's so much to do. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. Let's see, a few more things. I brought a little something. I made this wreath, and it gives you an idea of the wedding colors that we're going to be using. Lots of dark panty purples, kind of a raspberry, red, violet, pink going on. And then the blue that we're actually going to use in the wedding is going to be a not a navy blue, but very dark, very saturated, very indigo-y kind of blue. I'm going to have my ladies each in three of the main wedding colors. It's going to be fun. I'm going to incorporate as many florals as we possibly can, just because it's going to be early spring. Everything's going to be blooming. Everything's going to smell fantastic. It's going to be great. And my three important flowers are the peony, Got this lovely purple one. Tulip, which is one of my all-time favorites, and calla lilies, because, you know, calla lilies are so graceful and gorgeous and perfect and sculptural. I mean, I don't think it's possible to have a wedding without calla lilies anymore. They're just too pretty. So, for those of you who might have just stumbled onto my channel and wondering why on earth is this woman making this announcement, you know, kind of having a brief introduction of her fiance and talking about her wedding colors for the sake of her parents over a YouTube video, well, get ready for the explanation. It's for those of you who are unaware of the Jehovah's Witness religion or aren't very familiar with it, this is going to sound truly bizarre. But it is the policy of Jehovah's Witnesses that if someone chooses to leave the religion or is thrown out of the religion, they call it disfellowshipping. Just think excommunication. That gives you an idea of what's going on there. But when that happens, that person is shunned by the congregation, by all of their former friends, by all of their family members who happen to be adherents of that religion. In fact, to do otherwise is considered to be extremely disloyal, certainly by headquarters. There's been quite a bit of material in talks and videos and in experiences that has been shared within the Jehovah's Witness world that's really doubling down on the whole idea of shunning and the necessity to keep away from former members, not talk to them, not have any contact with them, and certainly not get into doctrinal or theological debates with them. It's a very serious thing. So even on important milestones like someone getting married or someone having a baby or someone moving into a house or someone moving up in their career or someone who's going back to school and has just graduated with a degree of some kind, you know, all these big important normal things where we think, you know, this is a moment where, you know, you tell your family and friends, probably in person or at the very least, you know, through a phone call or whatever. People gather together for these occasions. But when you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness, the Jehovah's Witness family and friends are not going to feel like they can, in good conscience, be a part of all that. It's weird. It is very weird. You know, and I've heard other former members talk about how there are moments when just how bizarre the whole situation is, and the reality of it just really sinks in for them. And for me, I've definitely been having one of those moments ever since he proposed. Ever since he and I even began talking about marriage, began planning for it, and now that we're actually taking steps to make that happen, it really does impress upon my mind just how out of whack the very idea of shunning is. Because there's all kinds of reasons for people to have disagreements or to have arguments, fights, or to be upset with each other. There's always going to be conflict within human affairs, and of course, you know, none of us are naive. We know this happens not just between ourselves and strangers, but between ourselves and our friends, between ourselves and our family. But in the case of friends and family, I think most of us have the expectation that, yes, you disagree. Yes, sometimes maybe there's even a big knockdown, drag out of a row. But at the end of it and on the other side of it, I think most of us think that the normal thing is for us to say, well, let's stitch this back together and get ourselves situated again because the relationship is more important than the disagreement. I think that's what most of us believe about most things. You know, there's some exceptions to things. Like I think if most people, if your relative went out killing people, you probably would have a problem with that. But you know, the idea of people shunning murderers isn't really not something I have a problem with. But shunning people because they had a change of mind, a change of heart when it came to religion, when it came to spirituality, and someone who's not interested in imposing their own convictions upon others, but just saying, you know, I don't share yours. To shun someone for that, I think every now and then, especially for those of us who have left, I think it's important for us to just take a moment to not only acknowledge to ourselves that this just isn't natural, but also to say something out loud that others hear, to help them realize that the Jehovah's Witness religion is not just another religion. A religion that says that because your daughter left the religion, you shouldn't attend her wedding. Odd. And bear in mind, I'm not out robbing banks or hurting people or doing anything. I'm just living my life. I have, my own personal religious and spiritual convictions now. I am, I'm not a proselytizer of my newfound religion or of my spirituality. That's not what I'm seeking to do. But the fact that I can't even have that within myself and still be able to, just have my Jehovah's Witness family around on these occasions, when something important, something that matters, something that is literally life-altering and really changes how my life will unfold from this point forward, to say that because I changed my mind, that all of the normal affection and support has to go away, I just can't get over it. I really can't. It's been odd. But as strange as it is, it's not going to diminish my joy. It's not going to fill me with doubts about what I'm doing. It's not going to give me thoughts of maybe I should go back because, oh, good God, no. You don't go back to a state of affairs where if you don't fit into this particular mold, if you aren't agreeing with everyone and by agreeing, I mean agreeing enough to where you make people believe that you actually believe what you're saying, that there's sincerity there when in truth there isn't. No. I mean, to go back to something that you believe to be patently false. No. I mean, I don't know how anyone would be able to manage that kind of breach of personal integrity. I mean, that's one of the main motivating factors for why I left. It was, I couldn't agree with what was being taught. I didn't see the purpose of it. I didn't see the value of it. I didn't think that it was even in accordance with Scripture. And I'm not a Christian today. So I don't, while I have an interest in the Bible from a historical point of view, from a cultural point of view, and just as a matter of it having played a part of my own past, I'm interested in that respect. But anything more, just no. And I know there are some ex-Jehovah's Witnesses out there who, they couldn't stand the loneliness, they couldn't stand the isolation, they couldn't stand this business of, only having a very few people, in your corner when important life events happen to you. I know some of them can't stand it, and they ended up putting on a show, getting reinstated, and getting back in. Some of them got back in just enough to where their family would talk to them, and then gradually faded away. And then a lot of the people who did that, their family ended up shunning them anyway. But I don't understand how anyone does that. And I'm not trying to talk down on people who do, because, I'm not in their shoes. I'm not the same person as they are. I've had different experiences. I have different emotional and mental makeups than what they do. And they're having to do what they think is best for their situation, and they have the right to do that, and I respect that right. But for myself, I just can't. I really just can't even go there, not even mentally. And I've got my wedding coming up. Yes, it would be wonderful if my father showed up and walked me down the aisle. Of course, my heart would absolutely melt, especially in a family like ours that was never really touchy-feely. It would still touch me. It would make me feel loved. It really would. but I'm not going to seek that out at the expense of everything that I am. And, and let's be clear, if I was still with the Jehovah's Witnesses, my wedding wouldn't even be happening. I mean, it just wouldn't. Because for one, they just probably still don't consider me free to remarry after my divorce. Signed, sealed, delivered, notarized, declared done by a judge, apparently all that doesn't count as far as the Jehovah's Witnesses are concerned. So I wouldn't be able to be getting married at all. I would still be expected to be living like a nun and to do that for the rest of my natural life, unless I could prove that my ex-husband had remarried himself. Or knock someone up, either one. That's what it would take. So I would not have the wonderful, caring, loving, intelligent, compassionate man that I am proud to call my own. I wouldn't be able to have him at all. But let's say in this fantasy land that the witnesses decided that I was free to remarry, and so I could, do what I like. I could still only marry another Jehovah's Witness. So I still wouldn't be able to be with the man that I love, because he is agnostic. He doesn't subscribe to any particular religion. He's very spiritually open-minded. He and I have talked many times. He says he knows there's something out there that's bigger than him, and he knows it's not just a projection of his own ego. He believes there is something there, just doesn't know what it is, and and it's not something that he has that driving need to find out about or to come to any conclusions about, which is fine. But if I was a Jehovah's Witness, it wouldn't be fine, because if I was a Jehovah's Witness, he'd have to already be one in order for me to marry him. Yes, there are some people who occasionally reel someone in, get them baptized, but even then, that's usually frowned upon. At least it was in the congregations I was in, because the thought was always, well, he's just doing that so he can marry her. He doesn't really believe in the God. We'll wait 4 or 5 years and we'll see what he actually does. There's this whole level of distrust, this whole level of disapproval. So, that's what it would be. That's what it would be. That's what it is for Jehovah's Witnesses who are still in that religion. Everything is just revolved around, defined by, and has to be within that box of the Jehovah's Witness organization. And when I think about all the things I would have lost if I had stayed with that, or if I was sick enough, and I'm talking about sick in the terms of mentally ill and going back to an abusive situation. I'm not talking about my parents. My parents did not abuse me, and I don't want anyone to think that they did. But the religion itself is abusive because of the way it treats people, because of the way it expects people to be, and the degree of conformity that is absolutely required within that organization. That is an abusive situation. Going back to that, expecting that something would be different, oh my gods, not in 10,000 years. I will take my happiness, thank you very much. And if my Jehovah's Witness family wants to come and show up and share in that happiness, I would be thrilled. They would be more than welcome. I'm actually pretty much planning on making, boutonnieres or corsages, so on the off chance anyone shows up, I can pin that to them, and everyone can see that they matter, that they are someone of importance, that they are the part of the family. Now, am I expecting anyone to come who's still a Jehovah's Witness? No, because I know what it's like. I know how they would feel absolutely twisted up in their consciences if they did. But if any of my Jehovah's Witness relatives or Jehovah's Witness friends from the old days happens to be watching this, and maybe you've changed your mind about the organization, maybe you're still in it, but you think they've got the shunning thing wrong, maybe you've left it entirely in good riddance, reach out to me. I would love to see you. I'd love to have you at my wedding. I'd love to have this a huge, wonderful, happy day. And whether anyone from the old days or not were to show up, it's still going to be a wonderful, happy day. It's going to be a beginning. It's going to be a foundation. It's going to be something that actually is with me for all of my life. Because this isn't like when I was married before as a Jehovah's Witness to someone who I scarcely knew, and I had no idea what I was getting into, or even what the ramifications for just living a married life really was. I had no idea. I really didn't. This is such a different thing, because I know this man. He and I have had good times. We've had difficult times. He has seen me, utterly emotional and having meltdowns. And he and I have learned how to deal with each other. We've learned how to communicate. We've learned how to read each other. We don't just know each other's histories and habits and thoughts. I mean, it's a deeper level of knowing than what I've ever experienced before in my life. And I wouldn't trade it for anything at all in the world. I really wouldn't. It took a long time for me to be lucky enough to find someone with whom I didn't just click with, but someone who, after that initial clicking and getting together, that there was enough there to really build a foundation, build something that's enough to have a life on. It's been a new experience. It's been a very deepening experience, certainly emotionally. And it's been rather enlightening because as an ex-Jehovah's Witness, I come with some baggage, some emotional baggage from the past, the way so many of us do. Some have more to deal with than others. Comparatively, what goes on in my head and the bad programming from the Jehovah's Witness days, it's really very mild compared to what other people have to deal with. But it is still there, and it does affect me in certain ways. And knowing that someone loves me enough to hold my hand and just be there for me, when it gets to me. Someone who loves me enough to go through that process of deprogramming. Someone who knows that sometimes I just have to go through my paces and get some of this stuff out of my system before I can take another step forward. What an incredible, amazing, and in some ways completely unexpected blessing. Because we hear too much about relationships that fail, about divorces or families falling apart. And as XJWs, we've already experienced families that fell apart, and many of us have experienced divorces on top of that. And some people who have left the religion but have a spouse who's still very much into it, some of them live lives that it's divorce in all but name. And it's such a lonely life for them. So I think a lot of us come out of the religion thinking, I can't count on anyone to stand by my side. I can't count on anyone to really love me when the chips are down. I can't count on someone if I change my mind about something or to even expect understanding from the people around me. That's the mindset that I'm afraid that so many others walk out of the religion with. So the fact that I can make this video today, and hope that my parents see it and be able to say, I've beaten those odds. I have something that is real. I have something that is going to last. I have something and someone who has helped me become a better version of myself. Someone who encourages me to be that better version of myself. Someone who doesn't stifle me or tell me that I have to be a certain way. Someone who's supportive and encourages me in the various things I choose to do. And to know that in doing so, as because I have my interests that, Not all of my interests interest Sean, and Sean has his own interests, and not all of those interests particularly interest me. But knowing that these things don't rip us apart, that we're able to retain our individuality, but at the end of the day, we keep coming back to each other. We keep coming back to the home that we have within each other. I'm extraordinarily blessed. And at the very least, I would like my parents to know about that. And since I am being shunned, I guess we'll do this through YouTube and Facebook. But at least it's out there. Whether they stumble on it or not, it's been said. And hopefully they do see this, so that first they're aware of my upcoming marriage is not a wedding invitation in the mail randomly. Oh, I would prefer for them to be able to get used to the idea and not have that come as a terrible shock. But, this is our situation. This is the reality of it. And yes, it is sad. It's sad for me to know that they're not going to be there unless they've had a profound change of heart, which I have no reason to expect that they have. It's sad that our situation is not unique and that other former Jehovah's Witnesses have gone through the same. It's sad. But at the same time, you can't let that sadness overshadow, just the joy and the glee and the giddiness that comes with these important occasions that move life forward and that change everything. So this video is not only my way of announcing what I'm up to my family, it's also it's also taking that moment, that pause, to acknowledge what is inherently sad about what's going on. That there is this undercurrent that isn't the giddiness, it isn't the glee, it isn't the happiness. That it is there and that it exists and it's real. To take a moment to mourn. I think that's important, and I think this video has really helped me do that. It's helped me just put the thoughts that have been rambling inside of my head for the past few weeks and give them life and give them voice. But now that that's said, I've got a wedding to plan. I've got dresses to try on. I've got, my maid of honor and my bridesmaids and flower girls to get all kinds of coordinated. We've got bouquets to make. We've got decorations to make. I have been collecting glass jars of every shape and size imaginable. I have been bedazzling them. I've gotten very familiar with my glue gun. I've been having an absolutely wonderful, marvelous time. And at the same time that I'm planning the wedding, I'm going to be setting up a brand new household, and we have all the fun of doing that, of just choosing flooring, choosing curtains, finding good deals on furniture, and just getting life really well and truly started. And I'm absolutely blissful about that. Which is why the unfortunate realities of my past as a Jehovah's Witness doesn't get to be in charge. The sad, depressing parts is not what has power. Not in this moment and not in the moments moving forward. It's going to be a joyful thing. And maybe, just maybe, if the stars align correctly, and if perhaps I've misjudged my family and friends, and maybe their minds are a bit more open than what I suppose them to be, maybe, just maybe, we'll have a few lovely surprises on the day of the wedding. Who knows? We'll see. Anyway, anyone can reach me on Facebook or through YouTube, so that's what I had to say. I'll see you guys later. I will try not to inundate this channel with my wedding preparations, but I'm a bride-to-be, and my self-control is only going to count for so much. So, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!